Hello, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Charleston,
Present.
Commissioner Hovey,
Here.
Commissioner Laney,
Present.
Vice Chair Lee,
Here.
Chair Oblea.
Here. Mr. Charleston, Commissioner Charleston, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready, begin. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Public comment. Right now, this is the time when anybody can speak on an item that is not on today's agenda. If you want to speak, you must fill out a blue card. Do we have any blue cards for?
No, we do not.
Okay, so we'll move on. Item 4, any additions or deletions to the agenda today? No? Okay, we have no consent calendar, no presentations. Item 6. So we'll go down to item 7, public hearing. Well, we're moving right along. Do we have a presentation for 7.1?
Yes, indeed, Chair. I will be giving the presentation this evening at your pleasure. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So members of the audience and members of the Planning Commission, we are pleased this evening to present the consideration of the removal of the future Schleisman Road interchange from the general plan. And we do have a PowerPoint presentation. I'll walk you through that right now. So as the commission is aware, the city of Eastville has adopted a strategic plan, and the proposed removal of Schleisman Road interchange from the general plan would meet 2 of those items in the strategic plan. Number 1 would be target number 5 and target number 6, and we've taken the liberty of listing what those goals are for each of those targets. So we just want you to know that this proposed removal is in concert with current desires of the community and the council. And so we prepared a graphic that shows what the current interchange spacing is. We have the interchange that are shown along the 15 freeway for the city of Eastville. And then also the red dash line indicates where the interchange is shown on the city's circulation plan for Schleisman Avenue. So that is the graphic that you would see in the general plan today as a part of the circulation plan. Now, in order to remove Schleisman Road from the general plan, an amendment is required. And then because this general plan amendment has been prepared, there's also an addendum to the previously certified EIR. And this EIR that we're speaking of is the one for the Palopolis site that showed Schleisman Road previously going through and connecting to the interchange. And now we're proposing to make that amendment and to take it out and have that addendum to the certified EIR that's already been prepared as well. So this general plan amendment, for those members in the audience, is city initiated. It would specifically amend the general plan, chapter 4, and it's called the circulation plan here in the city of Eastville. And the area in question is shown by the blue arrow and the dashed red circle, showing where the interchange would be and connecting Schleisman to the 15. Now, this is what the graphic would look like, what we'd have to get the IT division to prepare. And if the commission and the council approve the general plan amendment, this is what it would look like. Schleisman Road would not go through, and we would modify the graphic to show that. So there are several policy considerations that go in concert tonight with the consideration and the recommendation before the commission this evening. The first being that there are several other affected agencies for Schleisman Road. There's Norco, Arupa Valley, Riverside County, City of Riverside. Their transportation documents don't support the interchange or connections to the interchange. In addition to that, on the dais this evening, you have a letter from the County Transportation Director, Transportation Department, Patricia Romo. And in her letter, she is citing that she is in agreement with the city's recommendation to go through with the general plan amendment. and supporting documents that their document no longer is supportive of Schleichman Avenue. So just so the commission is aware, we do have that support from a neighboring jurisdiction. Oh, I'm sorry, let me go back to the slide as well. Also, if you would see with the blue circle, you see that the red outlining the city of Eastvale and then the city of Norco and the city of Harupa Valley. If Schleichman Road were to go through, as proposed in the general plan, it would require acquisition of right-of-way in jurisdictions that the city has no control over. So that's also another hurdle, for this particular request before you this evening. Other policy considerations is that there's no TUMP standing for the Transportation Uniform Mitigation Fee or other funding that's been designated for the construction. It's been estimated that the cost of this interchange would be about $91 million. That's the estimate. And then in terms of traffic safety, the connection to the I-15 would increase traffic on Schleichman Road. And then there's also potential safety impacts to pedestrians, schools, and parks. And we're able to show that a little bit with this graphic here. Some policy considerations, what these two graphics show is the conceptual configuration of the Schleichman Road interchange. There was configuration A and B. These are not in the general plan, but we did have the concept drawings done. And the one shows the configuration with potential impacts to Silver Lakes. And there's your arrow. And then also potential impacts to homes in Eastvale, and showing you there some noise impacts and with the interchange being constructed. Not just noise. And right-of-way, as we spoke of a couple of slides ago, and right-of-way. Anything else? Okay. All right, and so some more policy considerations, that the Hamner Place retail project, very important for the city's future. It would be divided literally in half if Schleichman Road were to become an interchange. It would also, by so doing, if you can see in the red rectangle, it would limit the development opportunities just because by geographically speaking, it would be taking up an enormous amount of land. Also limiting development opportunities and reducing future city revenues. If Schleichman did not go through, that land can be utilized for other retail opportunities, hotel opportunities, and/or civic uses, which are all very important to the city of Eastvale and its future. Also, it limits the ability to build uses to serve visitors to Silver Lake. So there are uses that are listed in the second bullet point that would serve not just Eastvale, but Silver Lakes as well. More policy considerations. We have both hard and soft costs. So we've already talked about the hard costs being estimated in 2019 dollars of $91 million to construct the interchange. If in fact one of the sites were to be developed as a hotel, then it's estimated based upon the size and height considerations that it would bring in about $350,000 per year in transit occupancy tax revenues to the city. Given working with Caltrans, and then also required right-of-way in adjacent neighboring jurisdictions, and modifying land use documents to get it on neighboring jurisdictions' plans, that process of constructing could take up to 40 years, and the estimated loss of at least $14 million in TOT tax revenues. So that's a soft cost, but it's definitely something to consider in your deliberations this evening. And also, more importantly, the interchange, removing it results in no negligible improvements, or actually having it has no negligible improvements to congestion at other freeway interchanges. There was a traffic analysis that was prepared for the addendum, and Peter Minahar and his team, I believe Urban Crossroads is in the audience this evening as well, and we can specifically answer any questions about that you may have. So that brings me to the end of the presentation, and the recommendation from staff is that the Planning Commission approve the general plan amendment and the addendum, or rather recommend approval of the general plan amendment and the addendum to the general plan EIR to the City Council. I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Also, Mr. Norris and his team, and our city manager, Brian Jones, as well. Thank you, commissioners.
I might also just add, before we took this to council to ask, did they want to spend money to do this general plan? We went out and created a white paper that was attached in your staff report. Eric.
I'm sorry.
We went around to the council, to the jurisdictions around us, and we had them review the white paper. Harupa Valley, Norco, the county of Riverside, the city of Riverside all reviewed that document and provided feedback. We also met with Caltrans to discuss the interchange, and in none of their planning documents does it show an interchange at this location, and they have not been anticipating an interchange at this location. About within the last decade, there was a document that did a conceptual design, but Caltrans never reviewed or approved that interchange concept that was shown on those pages. It was just done something at the local level and not at the state level. But all the agencies around us, and the interchange doesn't even exist within the city of Eastvale. It exists in the city of Norco and the city of Harupa Valley. But on-ramps and off-ramps could have a negative impact, both sound, blight, light, as well as the need for eminent domain potential on the single-family homes in the residential neighborhood that the county approved. That is our southeast corner of our city. Way back when that was in the county, they approved that subdivision where the footprint of the interchange could or should have been, and they didn't reserve that right of way. And so those interchange concepts also didn't include the current freeway widening that is occurring, which is pushing the lanes out and building the inside with the HOV. So just a couple other things that were happening. So there's a lot of things, but we've been working collaboratively with our agency partners around us, and we are the only city that still has it in our general plan. The county has it in, but they are planning on taking it out. And as Patty Romo's text shares.
Thank you, staff. Commissioner, do you have any question for staff at this time? Commissioner Lee?
Yeah, a quick question on, I understand that on the Riverside side, of course, the support is there. But I remember talking specifically what Patty is referring to that meeting. I think I was actually there. On the Chino side though, I think it's being a good neighbor. I think we should outreach to Chino, because Chino was the one that was kind of putting that meeting together. And to see if our Schleißman interchange is still going on, and we're still supportive of it. And at that time, from our city's perspective, we were leaving it in there. So if we're taking it out, I think it's prudent for us to inform Chino of that decision. So I would recommend outreaching to Chino as well.
Commissioners?
We can do that prior to the city council meeting.
Commissioners, any other comments or questions to staff at this time?
I have a couple questions.
Go ahead. Just for staff?
It's for staff. So I guess my question is that right now, making a decision like this is a little bit tougher because traffic control and patterns in the city right now are completely screwed up. With Limonite being busted up like it is, the bridge isn't done across to Norco. You wait for 30 minutes to get on the freeway on 6th Street. So there's a lot of real negatives. So as we're talking about this, the average person would say, are we crazy? Why are we taking this out? We can't get on the freeway anywhere. But I guess my first question is that the Limonite grade was really low, like an F, before we started doing the construction. I remember reading a report at one time that when we were done with Limonite, it was only gonna go up to a C. Am I remembering that right, or does it go higher than that when we're done?
It goes up to B and C. The Limonite interchange is way over designed and for a lot of additional capacity. Level of service C is one of the highest level. Most agencies are building their intersections, interchanges to D or E. C is a very
overbuilt facility.
Yeah, and when I read the packet, it was pretty clear that, you know, when you got to F, it was greater than 50 with extreme weighting, and as it moved up, it really improved pretty quickly, but
The
so
irony.
C is acceptable then.
The irony is Caltrans builds interchanges to level service C delay, but then they put ramp metering on them during the peak period. And so you can get through the intersection, but then you're stuck in the ramp metering. And so it's kind of ironic.
Okay, thank you. My next question was, in the land that if we don't put the interchange in, how much property do we actually save? The difference between 65 feet and 156 or 52 feet wide, all the way down, it should be a sizable amount of property.
Yeah, it amounts to a couple acres. But in that, in this previous plan, the site plan that you have, we built the roadway to something less than that, but we preserved right of way so that, but unfortunately, we weren't able to account for that as parking or whatnot today, because we needed to reserve that for someday when it was going to be widened. And so it was limiting some of the land uses that could go in there. By doing this, we could put better pedestrian facilities and trail facilities coming into the shopping center, and redesign areas, as well as you can see where the cul-de-sac ends there. There's that swath there of land that would go through and connect over to where Silver Lakes and the soccer fields are over there. And that would lay fallow for upwards of 40 years, because that was anticipated if this got put back into the TUMP, when this interchange would actually generate enough money. But a few years ago, the city of Eastville asked to defund this interchange in support of building the Limonite interchange and getting that one constructed. So one of the things that we have here is we could let this land stay fallow, or in the hopes that someday that this interchange gets funded. But to get that project put into the TUMP fee, we would need all the other agencies around us supporting that TUMP fee program decision, and increasing our development impact fees for every project that comes forward in the city and to the region, by adding $91 million to it. And instead, we could have this land be developable, and we could have revenue coming in that helps address our revenues. And the $350,000 is a super conservative TOT number for hotels. Some hotels are bringing in upwards of about $500,000 a year. So there's a big range. So there's a lot of opportunity, and we're hoping to highlight maybe the potential of having multiple hotels on this site to serve the region, and to serve Silver Lakes.
Okay, my last question, really, because the rest of them have pretty much been answered, is if we say no, I mean, if we agree, let's remove this, if we weren't buying 10 years from now, because all the reports that we were given, even the best reports we had, said it's hard to look forward to 2035 and make, real estimates on what traffic's gonna be. So, and I agree with that, how do you look that far ahead? But if all the building is completed in Ontario, in Chino, and people wanna come towards the east, are there any other options that we have? 68th, Bellevue, is there anything else we can kick in that already has an overpass that would be an addition, instead of a start from scratch project that would be 50 million instead, and possibly be able to get money for? Have we calculated that or looked at that?
Well, we've never actually looked at and gotten approval for the Sliceman interchange from Caltrans.
Right.
So we don't even know if the Sliceman interchange would be approved by Caltrans in its current configuration. That was never vetted through Caltrans to a completion process, which is a PSR, PS&E package for an interchange. When going back to your previous question a little bit, you asked, it's hard to imagine because we have Limonite interchange under construction right now in the 6th Street. Norco is working, and we have a project to widen Hamner from Sliceman all the way to 6th Street to make that 6 lanes all the way down to 6th Street, and then put dual left turn lanes to get onto the freeway down there. So they're adding additional capacity to get onto the freeway down at that location. With that, going back to your current question, and I lost what the question was again.
So
So
I'm just kind of trying to figure out, you know, if we're saying no to this, have we looked outside the box to say, what if there's an issue? If we're gonna go to 2035 and say, you know, it's hard to look that far ahead. Have we thought about what else would be possible options, I guess is what I'm asking.
So we have not looked at other possible options. The part of it is the intersection spacing. If we go back to the one slide, there's only about 2.5 miles in between Limonite and 6th Street or something like that. And when interchanges and freeways were first invented, the freeway spacing was supposed to be 5 miles between interchanges. Then it got down to a mile. And you see what the 405 does when you get down to an interchange being out every mile, it doesn't move, because when you have freeway interchanges too closely spaced, it creates a lot of friction on the main line and actually decreases the capacity of the mainline operations of a freeway. So when people say, hey, if we could just provide another interchange, we could get onto the freeway faster. But if the freeway's not moving, it doesn't do any good to get onto the freeway faster. It just, you get to the freeway faster, but you don't actually move on the freeway. And so when you have too many interchanges too closely spaced on the interchange, it makes things difficult. So you can see there's about 2.7 miles distance. So the least, when you look at the spacing, if you go from Limonite to 68th Street where the crossing is there, that is probably less than a mile or very close to a mile. And then you would need to have auxiliary lanes that would go from one interchange to the other. And so that would be an additional 20 to 40 feet of right of way on either side of the freeway to put in those, which would take out a lot of homes and subdivisions along there to widen that freeway interchange footprint. So I don't. I've designed quite a few interchanges in my career, and I'm not sure that fitting one in at 68th Street would really work, but I'm not saying that it wouldn't. We just haven't. That would be almost a $100,000 to $1 million study to kind of evaluate where another potential interchange would be.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lee?
So, so a few more questions, as was I was gonna kind of bring it up during the comments, but, have we taken Schleisman out of the RTP, the 2020 RTP SCS? Have we made that request to RCTC yet, then?
We let them know that this was coming, and yes.
Okay. And then the other part is, so I'm kind of putting this together with 2020 SB 743 kicking in. So we would, if we actually take out the Schleisman interchange at that time, we might actually get credit. And it might actually be a benefit to VMT analysis, because at that time, we won't need to do a level of service analysis for CEQA purposes. So I'm questioning the timing of it. Why are we bringing this up now to change the general plan at this moment, rather than bringing it up a year later?
We're bringing it up now because we have an opportunity to do development on this site, and we want to understand, do we want to have new revenue opportunities coming into our city? And one of the strategic plans, goals of the council was to identify new revenue sources and enhance the revenue that we're achieving off of our land. And so with this, reserving 152-foot right-of-way through the property really a 6-lane roadway through a site that really only needs a 2-lane roadway is a lot of extra right of way that isn't paying property tax, that isn't able to collect sales tax, and isn't able to generate transit occupancy tax. All of which help provide services to our residents and community.
My last question is,
But we did do some level of service analysis for this, and it doesn't show any new impacts
Right.
as a result of taking out this interchange.
so currently, in city of Norco, because I think the Sixth Street interchange is where most of our residents in the south kind of uses, right, currently? And there's congestions right now, right? So where are we on that discussion with Norco on the improvement to Sixth Street interchange?
So we've talked with their city manager and their public works director, who actually is a resident of the city of Eastville, and they are working with Caltrans to make improvements to that interchange and that intersection to put dual southbound left turn lanes from Hamner onto Sixth Street and improve the operations on getting onto the on-ramp to go southbound. The whole Hamner from Schleisman to Sixth Street will be widened to 6 lanes as well. And that will start as soon as we finish the Limonite interchange.
So it improved from going to Detroit previously in the past discussions, now to Sixth Street now?
Yes.
Okay, so that's an improvement, which doesn't, so we need to include that in the TUMF or propose or have Norco include that in TUMF so that it's in writing, so that they don't
It's,
back out of it again.
I believe it's going all the way down to Sixth Street.
Okay.
But from what we've sat down and talked with Andy and the project that's being designed right now by RCTC.
Okay,
So they're gonna tear up the improvements they've already made and expand that
Yes,
road wider
Yes.
than it is now?
yes.
And they're going to take out the American Legion building?
I don't know what they're taking out.
Cause they'd have to, cause that's right there on the, right on the sidewalk, so,
They are widening that roadway.
okay. Who wrote the white paper? That's my question. Who was the author of that white paper?
It was a collaborative effort between our planners, engineers.
Planners and engineers, okay. All right, at this time, I wanna, if there's not any other question, okay. Commissioner Lane?
So far, I'm looking at this presentation, and I'm basically told that it's only benefits if this is not in the general plan. Assuming this is taken out of the general plan and development goes forward, and 20 years from now, traffic is a nightmare because of Ontario, because of Chino, because of the rest of the building that happens in the city of Eastville, and it's determined, wait a second, we probably should have another interchange. Has there been any analysis at all as to what the right-of-way acquisition would be? Should there be another hotel? Should there be more retail, more businesses in this space?
Well, if the region wanted to put in an interchange here and so right now, we don't have eminent domain capabilities to acquire right of way in Norco and Harupa Valley. So we couldn't put in this interchange and we couldn't put this connection in without the support of those two cities. And the support of Caltrans, of which we don't have any of that support. So if all that were to change, and all of them would be willing to do that, you have open space in a roadway that is right south of our property, that and a roadway that is right on the base of that part that goes right over to the 15 as part of Silver Lakes. So I mean, if there were, but then you're impacting the operations of Silver Lakes and the soccer fields in the backyard, and all the homes that are right there on our southeast portion of our community. And you would probably need to acquire a number of those homes in that southeast neighborhood to put in an interchange. Or you would have the interchange that would be looking into their backyards.
Okay, well, I mean, I get all that part. I'm speaking specifically to the Palopolis property. I mean, how much actual extra development is there envisioned based off of this remaining parcel here? I mean, just looking at this parcel map, north and south of the prospective.
We could put in a number of square footage of buildings, including another pad, for the buildings to the north, we could put in a city hall and a library. We could put in an additional hotel in addition to the one, well, it's not approved by you yet, but there is a vision that there was a hotel as part of this, but we could put in a secondary hotel. We could put in additional restaurants, fine dining. We could put in a number of things here on this property by creating land that was not envisioned to be developable to be developable.
Okay, well, I'm probably going to be the only naysayer on the dais tonight, strictly because I helped communicate the benefits and the challenges and the issues related to development of the 2020 RTP. And over the 25-year sunset, our modeling shows that 65 to 68% of trips are going to be single drivers. It's about 74% if you, or 75% if you include carpools. So I'm just curious, with all these people that are going to be coming to our region in the next 25 years, if we're removing a potential access point to a freeway, how those people are going to get around. Because whether we like it or not, people are still going to drive. I'm all for driving less, but I don't see that changing much in our region over the next 25 years, and neither do a lot of my colleagues.
Yeah, so
Excuse me, but before we get into too much discussion, you're not asking a question now, so we could save your comments for after because they're good comments. But let's go on and we'll open the public hearing, and then you can address your concerns again after the public hearing. So public hearing is now open. Do we have any blue cards? If there's anybody who'd like to speak on this item, you need to fill out a blue card, and then you could approach the podium when your name is called.
We have received one public comment card, Vino Cigar.
I'm in favor of removal of future Schleichman Road interchange from the general plan. My name is Vino Sagar, and I'm a resident of Eastvale for last 18 years. And I have 3 businesses on Hamner, 1 block away from this Hamner Square. I have 7-Eleven, I have Masala House restaurant, and Masala House groceries. 3 of my businesses get a lot of business from the people or the customers who are taking exit on Limonite and driving towards Silver Lake or driving towards other places. So according to me, if there is interchange right there, most of my business comes on the weekends from the Silver Lake nowadays. And there will be people for the soccer field, they will be taking that ramp and going to Silver Lakes and driving back right from there. Whereas on the other hand, the travelers, they will be exiting on Limonite and traveling all the way on Hamner and going to Silver Lakes and coming back the same way. That brings me business all the time because they look at my 7-Eleven, they have needs of water or other things. So that is my personal opinion as a resident of Eastvale and local business owner, that this is a good decision of removal of this future Schleichman Road interchange, because otherwise it will affect my business. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
No, we have not received any other cards. Oh, yeah.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Goins. I'm the principal at Eleanor Roosevelt High School. My address, I'm a Corona resident. It's 302 Mount Vernon Way in Corona. And my work address is 7447 Scholar Way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commission, for the opportunity to address you tonight. And I'll be very brief. And it's been very interesting and educational being here tonight and hearing about, there's a lot of details here and I've learned a lot. From just a very simple perspective of a high school principal, we have many of our students walk or bike to school. And as you all know who travel the streets of Eastvale and around our city schools, it is there is a lot of traffic, and the reality is Schleichman scares me. and the speed in which people go scare me, and increasing volume from an on-ramp of people that are trying to find a shortcut into Chino really worries me as well. And so I typically am at work before traffic hits because it's the safe way to go. But there are many days where I do get caught in it, or I'll go out intentionally just to look and see the traffic patterns of our kids. And I'm very thankful for the city and the work that they've done in collaboration with our district of trying to reduce the danger areas and increase safety. And this one concerns me if a on-ramp ever were to go on in Schleichman. So I am, as someone that works with students in our city, I am really interested and hopeful that it will be removed off the project. So thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further speakers, I will close the public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. Okay, commissioners' comments. Commissioner Hovey?
Great questions from you guys. You answered most of my questions, all of my questions. I did have some issue as a longtime Eastville resident, as far back as I can remember, that interchange has been part of the plan, at least when, at least as long as I've been a part of the town halls, we've been talking about it. My concern is that putting more Norco and making improvements on Hamner to 6th Street is not going to help their interchange there. So it's just gonna put more, it's gonna make a greater bottleneck right at 6th Street and not gonna improve any of the traffic there. My concern also is for the future. My fear is that we are gonna regret removing this, just so that we can have some businesses there right now, when we do have other land where we can put the businesses. We don't need to have that center there right now. So I'm not really sure. I am concerned also about Scheisman. That has been my concern, just about the trucking routes. So, you know, my kids go to those schools too, so I am concerned about that. But for right now, I'm not convinced that we should remove the off-ramp. My concern is about the residents and the traffic patterns in the future, and I think that we will regret it.
Commissioner Lee? Commissioner Lee?
Sure. So just going back to my question earlier, we just need to make sure that the Hamner improvement goes all the way to Sixth Street in TUMP. So, because last I checked, the TUMP document didn't have it going all the way to Sixth. I just stopped at Detroit, but I could be wrong. So, let's double check on that one. The other part is kind of related to the project, or, you know, it could be unrelated, but how the transportation funding kind of works in our county is that there's two major regional sources, which is our sales tax dollars, which is Measure A, right? And then there's the TUMP money, which we collect from the developments. So those are the two main regional pot that we use for transportation projects. If we remove Schleichman Interchange, now that our Limonite is done, Hamner Bridge is all funded, most of our large projects have been funded. So in order to take advantage of the funding that's available through RCTC and WRCOG for large transportation projects, we need to make sure that we have enough projects in there so that we can take out what we put in, basically. What our residents paid in terms of their tax money, we need to recoup in having those large projects. So in the past, I've kind of saw Schleichman Interchange as the major big project to recoup that funding. But if we are to remove it, then we need that big transportation project in our county, in our city again, because without those big projects, we're now left with some of the improvements on the local streets. That's basically it. And we're putting in, looks like on the TUMF document, we're anywhere between $3 to $4 million a year into TUMF, right? I mean, give or take. And then from measure dollars, I don't know exactly how much RCTC collects from our city, but that's a lot of money. But we don't have any projects that RCTC doles out in terms of transit, new corridors, regional arterials, or bond money, or any of the other programs that they have under Measure A. So we need to make sure that by taking this out, we also add large transportation projects so that we also take advantage of the regional funding that's available. So in a sense, it's not really directly related to the Schleisman project itself, but at the same time, I am concerned about future transportation funding, and that is a funding source that we need to tap into. And we can tap, if we're not going to tap it through Schleisman interchange, we have to tap it through some other projects, and we need to make sure that those projects are in place. So that's kind of my spiel in terms of transportation funding. So let's make sure that we have those projects.
Commissioner Charleston.
I guess my comment would be that, again, it's hard to look that far out in advance. And the fact that our schools do line up with this and traffic's an issue, we'll survive. And if at some point we have to take stuff out, it'll be very costly and it'll be hard to do in the future. Once we build, it's hard to take it out. We spent $1.5 billion on the 91 freeway, and 700 million of it was just trying to acquire property. So, and it almost killed, well, it did kill portions of that project that we couldn't finish. And they're trying to finish them now. So this wouldn't be to that same scope, but if we don't do it now, if we take this out, then just knowing 25 years from now, it's gonna cost a lot more than we think it's gonna cost now. But I still am in favor of building what we need to build, and I don't want more traffic on Schleisman. The schools have enough, and I don't think that's a danger that we want to even remotely try to increase.
Commissioner Laney?
Well, I think my early reservations still stand. I'm just curious if, I understand the arguments of building or removing this now because we can build another hotel or a few more stores or another restaurant or two. I'm just wondering if the benefit of that gain in the next 5 or so years or 10 years warrants removing it right now, if this is something that could be punted down the road 5 to 10 years till we can at least see if this is really something that the city needs right now or in the future. Looking at, I understand that the Limonite interchange is overbuilt and will handle a lot of capacity. It's just hard to see that our city is going to have basically one entrance and exit to the freeway. Because Cantu Galeano wasn't built for us. It was built for, it wasn't built for us. It was built for Ontario Ranch and the 150,000 people that are going to be moving there. And I think to remove an option now, in my opinion, is just short-sighted.
I'm in agreement with a couple of my colleagues. I think this would not be the right time to remove Schleisman interchange from the general plan. It's a necessity to the city in the southern section. We have traffic. We're forcing our residents to drive through Hamner to 6th Street to get onto the freeway. And that's a headache most times of the day. I live close to that area and I see the traffic that goes through there, especially when there's a sporting event. Even when just rush hour work, going home and coming to work traffic is bad, but then if there's a sporting event there, and then it's really bad. And, I know we're making a lot of improvements to, Limonite, to, Hamner Bridge, Norco's making their effort. But I think we need to wait to see how those affect the traffic flow. Right now, if we jump the gun and remove this from the general plan, and then we find out that those improvements didn't do a bit of good, I keep hearing on the news, in West LA, the 405 widening project was supposed to solve all the traffic solutions for that area there, and the traffic is worse now than ever before. So just because they're making these improvements doesn't mean that's gonna help. And I know, we could do things on Schleisman to mitigate the problem with traffic for the schools. Put up traffic signs or, reduce speed when, children are present. We could put up, lit, crosswalks. We could get crossing guards there during school time. I mean, that's a small expense for the safety of the children. If we have to, we could not allow trucks on Schleisman through that area. In fact, we don't allow them right now, so it would just be, personal vehicles that would travel through there. There's things we could do to mitigate the concerns with students and the flow of traffic through there. If we think hard enough, I know we could come up with something. I don't know, if we wait and about 10 years down the line and traffic problems are solved, then we could readdress this issue about taking off the general plan. But, right now, I think it's a little bit, premature to, jump to that conclusion. I know, we had a city manager in the past that, removed the funding for this project and put it onto the Limonite. And when the city council found out about that, they were livid. And, but now, and then all of a sudden now, they're thinking about removing it. So I don't know why, all of a sudden, a few years ago, when the property was just a palm tree farm, it was fine. The Limonite should go straight through, but now that it's sold and somebody else owns it, now let's get rid of that interchange. So I don't know the concern to want to get it done right away. So I'm in favor of waiting and let's find out how all these improvements are going to help us before we remove this from the general plan. So with that said, is there anybody that'd like to make a motion on this proposal?
Chairman Oblea, if I might just say something real quick.
Go ahead, yes.
We did look out 2035 as part of the traffic analysis, and we did using the regional model to evaluate how these improvements would impact transportation and traffic with the land uses in the area. And there were no new impacts with removing the interchange. So I just want to make sure that that's on the record. We did evaluate out to 2035, which is where our general plan looks out to. And we did use the same model that was used for our general plan, including Ontario Ranch. And we did evaluate that the Cantu Galliano, the Limonite interchange, and the 6th Street interchange could handle the capacity that would be generated from the city of Eastville. And evaluated those things. So we did do those, and we did do all the technical analysis, and we went above and beyond with those technical analysis to look at those things. So I just want to make that clear, because it's sounding like we didn't, but from some of the comments up there, but we did do that, and that analysis was provided in the staff report.
Okay, it's on the record. Question, comment?
Question for the staff.
Okay.
So currently, we're not collecting any fees on for Schleisman interchange, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
So and so if we're to move forward and keep Schleisman in our general plan, we have to make sure that we also collect fees in order to improve it. Otherwise, it's just the interchange on a paper. So either we remove it or we keep it with full intention of building it and collecting the fees for it. So I think rather than just keeping it there, I mean, I think just keeping it for the sake of just keeping it in the general plan is a mistake. But I think, if we are going to keep it, then we need to keep it with the full intention of funding it. Otherwise, we need to get rid of it in order for us to take advantage of the property that we currently have.
Chairman Obleyla, to Josh Lee's point there, we have a general plan that assumes that the Schleichman interchange is part of this, and our CEQA analysis is in doing it. However, we have not funded, and we don't have a funding mechanism for that. So, and some might argue that our CEQA document for our EIR is, when we defunded that interchange, is not whole. Because we have not funded the infrastructure improvements that are used to mitigate and use that CEQA document for an EIR. And so, when we defunded that project and we're not collecting fees for that project, and our development is not collecting fees for that, and then to get the interchange put back into the impact fee program, we need support from our regional partners, including Norco and Harupa Valley, who have already taken political stances against the interchange. And the city of Riverside, which this roadway was intended to connect Chino with the city of Riverside, and Riverside said, we don't want to be connected to this. And so they removed it from the interchange west into the city of Riverside. And so they said, we don't care if you put the interchange in, but we don't want to be connected to the interchange. And so and the $91 million cost is just the construction cost, not including the eminent domain and the right-of-way that would be required of purchasing Silver Lake's property, as well as the single-family homes and residential neighborhood that it was pictured in the southeast part of town, as well as the environmental sensitive land on the east side, and then the floodplain of Harupa Valley. So all of that would require right-of-way and eminent domain, which we don't have the ability to do in other jurisdictions. And so the ability for us as a city of Eastvale to implement this interchange is very little without the regional support of our partners and the state of California.
Okay. Any other comments?
I think with the level of lobbying that you are doing for us to try to get us to sway to approve the removal of this interchange, I think that if we were to put it back on, if the city devoted themselves to lobbying our neighbors all around, I think that we could get the support of our regional neighbors.
I would agree with that. We've been having conversations with our regional neighbors for over 5 years. And these conversations have been going on with Norco and Harupa Valley, and they haven't moved. So, and we reached out to them. So I'm not trying to lobby. I'm just stating the facts of where things are politically and from a planning perspective in the region and a funding perspective. And so I'm not trying to lobby. I'm just sharing where the state of affairs is with the Schleichman interchange. And we could reserve it on our side for 40 years and it could never go in because we don't have support from the regional partners.
Okay, well, my concern is, if we remove this, it's removed. I mean, and so it'd even be harder for it to go through. Right now, there's nothing on the other side, and there's soccer fields in Norco, but there's nothing really built there but once we build something there on our part, then it's gonna be, it's not gonna be put in, that's it, that's the nails in the coffin. And I just want to remind our commissioners that this is just a recommendation of the city council. They have the final say. This is just telling them how we feel on the proposal. So with that said, I think there's enough discussion now. Do we have somebody that wants to make a motion on this proposal?
I move to make a motion to, I don't know what the exact wording is, but
It would be a motion to recommend to the city council that they either approve or deny the general plan amendment and the draft addendum to the EIR,
Okay, I make a motion to deny the general plan amendment.
or a motion to.
To recommend a denial.
Yeah, or
Yes.
recommend them up.
And the amended EIR?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
We have a second.
I second.
Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Charleston?
No,
Commissioner Hovey?
Aye.
Commissioner Laney?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lee?
No.
Chair Oblea?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you. Commissioner, I'd make Commissioner Business, there's none. Staff report? Any staff report today?
Just a couple of brief notes, Mr. Chair, if I can find them here. At your next meeting in June, on June 19th, we'll have the return of beekeeping, so you can look forward to that. May have one other development project, but we'll let you know about that when that gels.
Is that the latest buzz?
Not even gonna go there. Your denial last week, or at your last meeting rather, of the 7-Eleven conditional use permit has been appealed. So that will be going to the city council on June 26th. So just put that on your calendars. And there'll be a staff report to the council for that agenda item. And that's all we have. Thanks.
Okay.
Chair and members of the commission, there's one other item on the dais before you this evening, is the matrix that you requested at the last meeting about the RV parking.
Okay.
So we've taken all of the section of the Eastville Municipal Code and then listed the different locations that RV parking is addressed in the code. And if you would like staff to do any further work or make a presentation, then you would direct us to do so. But for now, it's been completed and it is in your hands.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioners' comments? Commissioner Charleston?
I guess I very much appreciate what you've done for us here, kind of laying it out. I guess my question initially was, what's happening with people that bring a U-Haul truck and leave it in front of their house for 2 weeks, and they're using it for business? Or they buy a trailer, they hook it up to their pickup truck and leave it in front of their house for weeks at a time. And they come and go once in a while. It seems like that kind of got away from what the rules we set up were. But we don't have an actual rule that will help us enforce to tell people you can't do that. We make a guy put his boat behind the fence, we make him put his RV behind the fence. But if you buy a utility trailer and want to run a business out of it, you can leave it on the street for weeks. And I don't agree with that. And I guess my question is, how do we get to that point where we can enforce that if you want to have a business like that, you need to have RV property and put your trailer behind the fence like we make the guy that owns his boat or owns the motorhome? That's my goal or my hope.
Okay, we'll amend this document and add that information. What you're speaking of is called home occupation permits, but there are rules about home occupation permits and the manner in which they're operated and whether or not they're obtrusive to adjacent residences. So we will add that information to this matrix and present it again.
Would you like to add that to a future agenda item, or?
That would be perfect.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Commissioner Laney, do you have any comment?
No?
Okay. Commissioner Hovey? No. Commissioner Lee? Thank you, everybody, for being here. Meeting adjourned.